Crespo is going to be host for Let's Talk Football, the round table. And Let's Talk Football ladies.
Hey everybody, and Let's Talk Football. Delilah Crespo here with another episode of Diversity with Delilah. And today I'm going to talk to you about Coach Leslie Frazier. And of course, we know he played football before, but he's been coaching for a lot longer, for decades, really. You probably know his name because he's been, as a coach, defensive coordinator, various different coaches for a lot of different teams. All right, so let's go. So he is a former Bear, cornerback, one of the monsters of the Midway, as it were, of that 1985 Super Bowl team. He was born and raised in Columbus, Mississippi. Frazier started his sports career at Stephen D. Lee High School in Columbus, Mississippi, where he won 9 high school letters, playing 3 different sports, baseball, football, and basketball. Frazier then went on to play college football at HBCU Elkhorn State University from 1978 through 1980, where he lined up in the defensive secondary next to Roynell Young. In his freshman season, Frazier recorded 6 interceptions and 62 tackles. His sophomore season was even better as he set a school record with 9 interceptions while also breaking up 26 passes, recovering 2 fumbles, and making 44 tackles. While his team finished with an 8-2 record, Frazier's junior season was cut short because he hurt his hamstring, but he still put up 5 interceptions and 49 tackles. By the end of that year, Frazier decided to skip his senior year and, declare for the NFL draft. He did go undrafted in 1981. Obviously, this often happens with a lot of players when you get injured. Some teams just don't want to take a chance, but the Bears did. And so the Bears did sign him a few days later. He spent most of his rookie season on special teams, returning 6 kickoffs for 78 yards. During the 9-game strike, which was the shortened season, that's where he became a starter and was actually put in the role that he was doing in college, which is defense. So that's where he was shifted to defense. Frazier made the starting lineup, intercepting 2 passes and recovering 1 fumble in 6 starts. Over the next 3 seasons, he intercepted 18 more passes. So he was a dangerous cornerback for us. He was always intercepting. He could make tackles he could make tackles. He could force fumbles, all this great stuff. Frazier was on that 1985 Super Bowl game. However, sadly, he did get hurt. Frazier led the team with 6 interceptions in that game, but his career is cut short due to a knee injury because he suffered a torn knee returning a punt in the second quarter of the Super Bowl. So while he was killing it that game, sadly, he was hurt. It was later, he didn't come back in that game because he really destroyed his knee. This is how bad it was. So once, they sent him to some of the best doctors, but once they got under the x-ray, it was bad. The damage to the knee included tears of the anterior cruciate, posterior cruciate, and medial collateral ligaments, and a fractured bone under the kneecap. It was just, his knee never fully recovered. They thought he would come back to the Bears later, in the latter half of the 1986 season, but he got cut from the team. Another team picked him up. It's just devastating knee injury, but he still wanted to be part of football, and so even though he couldn't play anymore, he shifted his focus to coaching. And that's what I mean, that he's been coaching for decades. He started his coaching career in 1988 as the first head coach at Trinity College in Illinois, now known as Trinity International University. He held the position for 9 seasons, built the NAIA program from the ground up, and won a pair of Northern Illinois Intercollegiate Conference titles before he moved on to the University of Illinois in 1997 as the Illinois defensive backs coach. He moved on into the NFL in 1999. Frazier joined his first-time head coach, Andy Reid, as the defensive backs coach for the Philly Eagles. It was there that Frazier worked. He worked as fellow assistant with Vikings future head coach Brad Childress. That name is going to come up again. That's also where he met another coach, that we know, Sean McDermott. So again, it was in Philly where he connected with a lot of these different coaches. So that's kind of where he started his NFL coaching career. In 2003, Frazier was hired as the defensive coordinator of the Cincy Bengals under new head coach at the time, Marvin Lewis, where he helped turn the unit into a group that increased takeaways from 24 in 2003 to 36 in 2004. So just a season later. The Bengals' 36 takeaways ranked third in the NFL in 2004. The 04 Bengals notched 20 interceptions, the most that they've done since 1996. Then in 05, Tony Dungy hired Frazier to be the defensive assistant of the Indianapolis Colts, receiving the title of special assistant to the head coach as well as the defensive backs coach. He was specifically brought out by Dungy to help the Colts' young core of defensive backs. Tony Dungy, I already covered him on one of my episodes. He knows coaching, and he knows how to pick the right guys to work with all the different players. So he was brought on. So he brought Frazier on to work with those young core. It worked. During his time in the Indy Colts, the passing defense improved from 15th in 2005 to 2nd in 06. On February 4th, 2007, all Bears fans know this date, the Colts beat Frazier's former team, the Chicago Bears. But this would be Frazier's second Super Bowl because obviously he got one with the 85 Bears and as a player, and then he won one as a coach for the Indianapolis Colts. So there you go. He is a 2-time Super Bowl champ. One as a player, one as a coach. And yeah, it's just kind of ironic, right, that that's who he got his second one from. Anywho, so on February 8th, 2007, Frazier became the defensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings under head coach Brad Childress. Like I said, that name was going to come up again. And the reason he's there is because at this time, Mike Tomlin was hired to be the new head coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers. See all the connections because I also covered Mike Tomlin in another episode of Diversity with Delilah, probably like a couple episodes ago. There's a lot of connections, right? A lot of small pool. A lot of guys know each other. Anywho, so that's where he connected again with Brad Childress. After the team started in 3-7, they named Frazier the interim head coach for the remainder of the 2010 season, and they fired Brad Childress. So, yeah, that's what happened there. I remember that was all over the news because, again, the Minnesota Vikings is in the Bears division. So when things like this happen, we kind of hear it right away over here in our media. So it was like, oh, Frazier. And of course, because he was a former Bear, that kind of stuff. Okay, so in his first season as the head coach, the rebuilding Vikings went 3-13, their worst season since '84. On December 5th, 2011, Vikings owner Ziggy Wolf stated that Frazier would return in the 2012 season because they recognized that he just took over just rebuilding and just a lot of bad stuff. So in Frazier's second full year as head coach, the Vikings improved to 10-6 and they made the playoffs. The biggest single season turnaround in Vikings history resulted in Frazier's finishing 4th in voting for NFL Coach of the Year award that season. The Vikings exercising their 4th-year team option to keep Frazier under contract through 2014, but on December 30th, 2013, Frazier was fired because, he was making playoffs, they were improving, but they couldn't get further. They couldn't get further into the hump, and so they were like, yeah, we're moving on. So that's where Frazier's head coaching tenure ended. I'm going to move on some years later because after that, he kind of bounced around to a bunch of different teams. And so, again, just in the defensive position, he was either like a defensive coach or assistant defensive coach. And so he bounced around a few times to a few different teams. But the last team that he was coaching for was on January 12, 2017, Frazier was hired by the Buffalo Bills to be their defensive coordinator, reuniting him with new Bills head coach Sean McDermott. Remember I said how there's all these connections? Because Frazier worked alongside him as an assistant coach for the Philly Eagles from 99 to 02. So in Frazier's first year with the Bills, the team made the playoffs for the first time since 1999 and ended what was previously the longest playoff drought in the 4 major North American professional sports leagues, because, they track a lot of that. It became the longest because in 2016, my Chicago Cubs broke the 108-year GOAT curse. That's why Bills kind of moved up in there across all the major, the major sports as the longest drought. On March 4th, 2020, Frazier was promoted to the assistant head coach position. In Frazier's first year as assistant head coach, the Bills won both of their first AFC East titles and a playoff game since 1995. They also made their first AFC championship game since 1993, in which they lost, unfortunately, to the KC Chiefs 38-24, because that's just the way it is with this team. Kansas City Chiefs and Mahomes is their kryptonite. On February 28th, 2023, the Bills announced that Frazier would not be returning to the defensive coordinator position in 2023, and that he intended to return to coaching in 2024, but not with the Bills. So he, for some reason, there were like a lot of, there's a lot of rumors. I don't know if he had a falling out. Maybe he just didn't agree with how the Bills were running things. I'm not sure. But he was not fired. He just didn't want to coach for the Bills anymore. So he just didn't want to finish the 2023 season. But he did want to come back to coaching in 2024. He was interviewing for the Miami Dolphins position as defensive coordinator. But they didn't go with him this round. So he's still out there, and I know he's been interviewing with a few other teams for that DC position, because, as you know, there's been a lot of mass head coaching hirings, and a lot of them were defensive coordinators. So Frazier, who knows? We may see him as a defensive coordinator for a team this season, or let's see what happens. But he does want to come back to coaching. He just didn't want to coach for the Bills anymore. He was in the running for the Miami Dolphins, as I said, but the Miami Dolphins did go in another direction. And so currently he's out there still interviewing. And here's some accolades. So he was inducted into the SWAC Hall of Fame in 2007. He was also inducted into the Elkhorn State Hall of Fame in 2012. He was also inducted into the Mississippi Sports Hall of Fame in 2017. And last year, he was inducted into the Black College Hall of Fame. So I know these aren't like super what people consider prestigious, but I think it's important to recognize HBCUs. And especially this being Black History Month, we should recognize a lot of these other ways that players get their accolades. And they matter just as much. Yes, I know it's not the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It's not the College Football Hall of Fame. But it is important to, Black athletes, and, if you're following Black History Month, it's a big deal. And so I want to make sure that we're elevating all of these other awards. And again, he is an HBCU grad that did good stuff. And he's not the only one. We've noticed that a lot of players who've gone on to have stellar careers and coaching have come out of HBCUs. And so I hope that the NFL really looks deeper into HBCUs and don't overlook talent. All right, team? So there you have it. That is your Diversity with Delilah, Coach Leslie Frazier. Until next time, have a wonderful week.
Yeah.